Hey guys, hope I'm audible and visible. If so, say me hi and hello, and let's start. Just give me a second. Okay. Hello guys, am I audible and visible? I hope I am, and I hope the slide behind me is also audible. This is from one of the archives. Let's see if we can come to a diagnosis. Let's go step by step. Hello, Sitara. Let's go step by step to approach to cases. And once we have done with the maybe the diagnosis and differential diagnosis, I'll give you a short approach on the topic per se. I'm trying to upload one more slide as well. I hope if it's get uploaded, that also will be ready so that we can see that as well. Yeah, that's also getting uploaded. Great, amazing. Fine. So for starters, like what biopsy is this? I know it's a very simple and a silly question, but I want you guys to get excited and start the drum roll going on. So I want you to also answer what biopsy is it, so that some things which comes very easily. That's a simple biopsy of I think this should be simple enough. That's a biopsy of a skin, right? Great hacking. Just to start with, I just want you to go on, have a simple normal feeling and not get intimidated by the book. Our goal is to learn. Our goal is primarily not to kind of find fault with anyone or to say that someone is very good in diagnosis, someone is not good in diagnosis, right? So let's say you have a skin biopsy. Can anyone help me with the parts of a skin, normal skin, so that I'll tell you how to actually approach whenever any skin biopsy comes to you, be it a biopsy in the exam or be it a biopsy in a normal routine finding. The first and foremost is dermatopathology is much of an evolved science in abroad. In India, it's evolving, and hopefully in near future it'll definitely evolve a little bit more than we anticipate, right? The first and foremost thing is it's very important to know the clinical differential diagnosis, especially if it's an inflammatory pathology. Please be very sure. For a neoplastic pathology, most of the findings are very classical, spot on, you can easily find out with ease. If it's an inflammatory pathology, I need not just clinical symptoms, clinical differential diagnosis, because there may be lots of overlap when you look at the microscopy. Okay, only a perivascular lymphocytic infiltrate, right? So sometimes I will not be able to diagnose and focus on what I want to see. If you're going to start reporting dermatopathology, ask clinical differential diagnosis. That will make your life much easier, right? Second, I want you to look on few things: epidermis, paniculitis, right? There's an entire entity on paniculitis, right? Entire entity where subcutis can be involved, and you can have subcutis inflammation and paniculitis. It's streaming live, right? Okay, perfect, great, fine, right? Then not just that, I'll also have to look at the skin adnexal structures. When I say adnexa, I have to look whether the epithelium is normal, whether the hair follicle is normal, whether the adnexal glands are normal. All those things have to be looked for, right? Even in the hair follicle, I have to look whether the epithelium is normal, oriented properly, and everything, right? Last but not least, I want you to look in the dermis, also at the vessels. I'll tell you why vessels are very important for me, because quite a few skin conditions presents vasculitis presents skin conditions. Quite a few skin lymphomas presents skin conditions. For that, I have to know where the focus on. For that, vessel also is one of the entity I wanted to focus on, right? So I have 5 important areas. Now I will go back to the case and I want you to tell which area do you think is a primary problem. Is it in the epidermis? Is it in the dermis? If it's in dermis, just the collagen of the dermis, or the adnexa of the dermis, or the vessel of the dermis, or the subcutis, right? Are you ready? If you guys are ready, put on a thumbs up smiley. Let's start with the discussion, right? The skin. I'll just go to one by one layer. We'll just zoom it. I hope it's visible for you guys. I hope it's visible, right? Epidermis. Just I'll slide through the epidermis normally. You tell me whether is there any abnormality. Is there any abnormality is what I wanted to look for. Anyone? Is there any abnormality in the skin? Yes, no, maybe. Come on, it's a simple thing. See, like I said, this our goal here is to learn something, not to pinpoint the diagnosis, not to say, okay, you're good, I am bad, this person is good, this person bad. Nothing here. Tell me if the epidermis feels is abnormal or not. Hakim, I'll come back to this. Okay, like I said, there's a broken one here. I am thinking, Hakim, you're worried about this. You're worried about this part. Uh, Maybe you're thinking it's a Buller's disorder. I'll tell you, clinical diagnosis, differential diagnosis is not a Buller's disorder. It's an artifactual separation here. Since I don't clinically see a bulla, since there is no bulla mentioned in the form, let's ignore this for now. It's an artifactual separation which has come due to processing of the tissues, fine. So let's ignore that point for now, right? So apart from that, come on guys, 20 of you online. I just want you to say epidermis is normal, abnormal. That's all. I am not even asking what abnormality. You guys are good enough. You guys are good enough. Okay, let's go start one by one. Can you see the basal layer of epidermis? Yes, decent. Stratum corneum is there. Yes. In the stratum corneum, do you have anything called as parakeratosis? Parakeratosis when you see nucleus in the stratum corneum. No. Simple, normal. Is the entire length of epidermis bigger or normal? Okay, great Praneet, great Junu. I want others also to comment. Do you feel it's normal? It is normal, right? So epidermis more or less looks normal for me, right? I told 5 places to look for: epidermis, dermis, indermis, adnexa or vessels or the collagen material, and then we'll look at the hair follicles and other things as well, fine? Okay, is the dermis normal here? Tell me, is the dermis normal? This is dermis. I'm just going to go for the dermis. I'll go to subcutis also soon. This is the dermal area. Just tell me whether you feel it is normal, abnormal. That's enough for me. Whether you're feeling it normal or abnormal. Yes, no, maybe should be more than enough. Do you think the dermis is normal? I'll zoom out a little bit if you require it. I'll zoom a little bit as well if you require it. Okay, I got 2 people to call dermis is abnormal. That is Sri Shraddha, Hakim as well as Junu says is abnormal. Okay, great, great, perfect. Okay, let's go to the subcutis. Can I say the subcutis? That's the sub epithelial or subdermal fat. Is that normal? Is it looking normal, or do you think there's some abnormality there? If it's abnormal, is the septa abnormal or the fat abnormal? I want both answers as well. Is the subcutis, the fat below the dermis, normal? Pranit, I'll always take lymphocytic infiltrate with a pinch of salt. Lymphocytic infiltrate is definitely pretty common in quite a few conditions, and it does not actually give me any pointers to a diagnosis, fine? Septa and subcutis abnormal as per Hakim, right? Do you guys accept that whatever Hakim said is right? The septa and subcutis kind of abnormal? Yes. Okay. Now I have to focus on where I have to look for. So this, as per you guys, is normal. Here, as per Hakim, septa is abnormal. Septa looks abnormal, and as per you guys, adnexa also looks a little bit of abnormality, right? So you need not write all these things in every case diagnosis. I just want you to mentally prepare. Okay, this is what I looked for. This is what I have understood is abnormal for, right? Now let's go a little bit into the septa, because dermis is very big for me to look for and to concentrate and to find what is the exact abnormality. Let's look at the septa, which is a very thin area, it's a very small area, and let's see where exactly is the abnormality in the septa. Okay, let's look at this area. Okay, let's zoom into this area. Tell me what do you feel is abnormal in the septa? Is the fibroblastic proliferation abnormal, or is it too much of inflammation, or do you think the vessel is abnormal? Because septa I can have paniculitis. Primary, one of the important thing which can happen in septa in the subcutis is septal paniculitis is definitely one of the important things. What do you think is abnormal? Is it just the inflammation, or do you think anything else is happening? Let me focus on exactly what I want to look for. What do you think is this structure? Tell me what structure is this? Inflammation dense around the vessels. Hakim, great. Junal, then inflammation, great. Can anyone tell me what structure is this? What is structure? Come on, guys. You are okay. Hakim has gone and given a one bit of more insight. Is calling it thrombus. Okay, let's come back to that, Hakim. What is this? What is the structure? What is the structure? A vessel. Fine. I'm not going to contemplate artery, vein, or an arteriole. It's a vessel, right? All of you accept it's a vessel, like whatever Pranit said. Hakim also is pointing to the same thing. There's dense amount of inflammation surrounding the vessel. In other words, it's a simple normal vessel. Do you guys accept? Perfect, right? So we know that a blood vessel in the septa is abnormal. Now tell me, if the problem is with the blood vessel, I'm just extrapolating, thinking it out loud. If the problem is in the blood vessel, will it be retained only to the septa, or could the same blood vessel be abnormal in the dermis also? Do I require to go and look at the blood vessel in the dermis to determine whether the pathogenesis is restricted to the vessels in the body, or should I just ignore the dermis and say, okay, it's only septal vessel problem, it should be the septal problem only? What is your take? There's nothing wrong in first going and having a look at the vessels in the dermis, right? Let's go and have a look at the vessels in the dermis. Let's see if you guys feel the vessels in the dermis is also abnormal. Okay, let's zoom this. Do you guys think this blood vessel also is abnormal a little bit? Actually, I'm not able to zoom beyond this. I'll take maybe a screenshot and have a look at it soon. Do you guys think that feel that this vessel is also abnormal? This vessel here, this vessel here. Give me a second. We'll zoom this. Do you guys see this? The vessel is abnormal. Shraddha says yes, abnormal. Anyone else? Come on, yes, it's abnormal. I've taken a screenshot of that and zoomed into that particular vessel. Fine. Okay. Tell me what you're seeing in this vessel. Whatever comes to your mind, tell me whatever comes to your mind, what you're seeing in this vessel. Perfect. What is seen in this vessel? You must have seen a normal dermal vessel or a vessel in any normal biopsy. Maybe it in breast biopsy or a colonic lesion, right? You must have definitely seen that. What do you think is abnormal in the vessel? Hakim is right. One is the lymphocytic infiltration. Okay. Anything else? I want you guys to open up so that we can have actually a very, very meaningful conversation and meaningful understanding of the subject rather than just going. I don't know if I can pull this out here. Okay. Okay, Hema has given a very important point for us here. So now we had agreed that the vessel is abnormal. Fine. So when the vessel is abnormal, the first question I want you to ask is it inside the vessel or outside the vessel or a part of the vessel, maybe the wall of the vessel or inside the vessel, or is it just outside the vessel? What do you think, guys? Is the problem in the vessel or is the perivascular problem? When I say outside, is a perivascular problem. What do you think it is? Let's see if I can take an image of that, and if possible, if I can copy that and put it somewhere. Okay, perfect. So tell me, where is the problem? Is the problem in the vessel wall? Is the problem outside the vessel? Perivascular. Perivascular is outside. I want you to know whether it's a problem in the vessel or problem from the dermis. That's a question. In the vessel wall, great. Do we agree with Hema, Janaldin, Praneet? Okay, now let's say this is the lumen. Supposed lumen, but I'm not having an exact finding. Can I say that this could be the wall of the vessel? I'm just drawing a random outline. Can this could be the wall of the vessel? This part? And do you accept that I'm having actually problem in the wall of the vessel and not only outside the vessel? Will you accept that? Will you agree for that? Or do you still want to say, see, this is where I call it a perivascular problem. This part is perivascular, this part is perivascular, this part is perivascular. This for me is the wall of the vessel wall. Do you accept that the problem lies within the vessel? That's the wall of the vessel wall, and maybe intravascular some other problem is there? Yes, no, maybe. Okay, Rucha has given us a ultimatum that it could be a vasculitis. Could be a vasculitis. I'm not contemplating that at all. The problem is in the wall of the vessel, like Princess says, right? In the wall of the vessel. Perfect. Now, let's go to a simple first year's slide which I've seen. Okay, I'm sure you must have demonstrated in your pathology practicals to your undergraduate. Appendicitis, I will call it as an appendicitis only when the inflammatory cells, that's a neutrophil, travels to the muscularis propria of the appendix. Have you told this to your undergraduate? Yes, no, maybe. Possible? Have you told this to your undergraduate? Simple thing, yes, because appendix is such an organ where normally also you will have inflammatory cells close to the submucosal area, right? So if that holds true for appendix, the same thing holds true for every organ. For me to call it a vasculitis, I am not going to look at the perivascular inflammation. I am going to look at the inflammation in the wall of the vessel. Inside the lumen, again, it's a bit of a difficulty for me because inside the lumen, again, I can have normal circulatory WBCs as well, right? So now here in the wall of the vessel, I'm thinking of some problem, right? Let's go to the same image only. I'll just circle one cell. I want you to tell me what cell it is because this will help us to come to huge amount of conclusion. Can you tell me what inflammatory cell this could probably be? You must have seen inflammatory cells. Whatever comes to your mind, you need not be always right. You need not be wrong. Doesn't matter. What inflammatory cell comes to your mind when you look at these cells which I'm circling? I have neutrophil, lymphocyte, macrophages, since the tissue, eosinophils. Okay, Hakim and Hema is going for neutrophils. Eosinophils, Juhi. Sitara, neutrophils. Junu, neutrophil. Okay. Junu, did you call it as a eosinophil because you're seeing bilobes? Is that the reason you call it a eosinophil? If that is the reason you call it a eosinophil, with respect to a biopsy, neutrophil also will look like a bent nuclei only. It will not have the lobations. Fine. Remember that alone forever, right? Now, if that is a neutrophil, can I term this? I'm asking you with your permission. We did think it's a vasculitis. I'm not sure about it yet. And you guys only said that I'm having a neutrophil here. Can I term it as an acute vasculitis? Is it okay for me to call it an acute vasculitis? Yes, obviously it's okay for us to call it an acute vasculitis, right? Perfect. Okay. Next question is, when I have neutrophils in a vasculitis, I always go a little bit more and look for one more finding. Okay. Let's zoom it again. I'm just going to circle one structure, few structures in, let's say, green color. Tell me whatever comes to your mind. Is green visible? Okay, green is not that great. Let's go the blue one. Okay, perfect. I'm going to circle few areas. Tell me what comes to your mind when you think of that. This area, this one, whatever comes to your mind. Whatever I'm circling, what color is that? What color is that? I'm going a little bit outside as well. What color are these? Tiny, tiny ones. Those are blue colors, right? They are blue in color. What do you think those are? Amazing, Hakim. Do you guys agree with Hakim's diagnosis that they are looking like a nuclear debris, looking like a nuclear material, right? Yes, no, maybe. Since Hakim has told us that it looks like a nuclear material, do you agree that it looks like a nuclear material? Just a random question. You might agree it's like looking like a nuclear material, right? Perfect, right? I won't call it a lymphocyte, Shraddha, for the only reason they are very, very, very tiny. A lymphocyte will not be this tiny, right? The only difference between a nuclear debris or a karyoretic debris versus a lymphocyte is its size. Lymphocyte will be definitely, see this, I might go for a lymphocyte, okay? But anything smaller than that size, I'm not going to think of a lymphocyte. Apoptotic body, amazing ideology, Princess. When I'm going to have such amount of inflammation in an area, do you think apoptosis is practically possible? It's a logical flaw for us, right? I will not see apoptosis in such a huge amount of inflammation. So I'm going to keep apoptotic body also a little bit outside, fine? Perfect. Now, what I'm seeing is, you guys only said that it is a nuclear debris. I just took one frame and we are just learning about just one finding in the slide, right? We'll go back to the slide again. So can I call this vasculitis leukocyto, which is WBC, clastic, which is broken, that's my nuclear debris. Clastic is for the nuclear debris, whatever we saw, whatever we agreed upon, and can I call it vasculitis? Is my diagnosis sorted? It's nothing but a leukocytoclastic vasculitis. There are a huge number of differential diagnoses for leukocytoclastic vasculitis. I'm not going to come and write, okay, this is the pinpoint diagnosis, because I would require a more and more and more investigation, sometime markers, sometime clinical history to call it. This is a very solid diagnosis with respect to a final year MBBS or even a post final MD pathology or even a post MD pathology, right? That's all. It's simple leukocytoclastic vasculitis. We did agree upon in one finding. Always make sure, keep this in mind throughout your career. Do not ever diagnose on one isolated finding. It should fit everywhere. Only when it fits throughout the slide, it could be right. Or this finding could just be an incidental finding, which we might go wrong at some point of time, right? Let's zoom in. Let's go and look at multiple other blood vessels. Am I seeing similar finding? Okay. Am I seeing a similar finding in another blood vessel? Do you accept that is a blood vessel which is also inflamed? Yes. Blood vessel, perivascular inflammation, yes. This is a little bit low power. I cannot zoom beyond this, unfortunately, but you can see a little bit of debris in this power also. If the eyes get used to it, definitely smaller debris you can definitely see. Do you accept there's good amount of inflammation? Look at this. It's good amount of inflammation here. Yes. Perfect. Just two more finding, then you'll wind it up. The diagnosis here is leukocytoclastic vasculitis only. The first vessel which I showed you, Hakim told that, that's a very good observation. Hakim told that there is a thrombus kind of thing. Though it's not going to helpful for me here, look at this. This is an amazing slide. It's an amazing image. Fine. This is a vessel. Perfect. Okay. Do you guys agree that this part of the vessel, I can draw this here, this half of the vessel is looking like maybe a query thrombus. Here's my lumen, something like that, a thrombotic event. Remember, every vasculitis at some point of time will affect and damage the vessel. Lumen might have thrombosis. Lumen might have a very active thrombus or a dissolving thrombus. That is very much possible in every vasculitis. Don't worry, you need not write them in the finding, but it's just a clue for me to look up, okay, this might be a thrombotic area. I can be very well confirmed to call it a leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Look at this vessel. It's such an amazing amount of nuclear debris. Okay, the wall of the vessel, it's inflamed. Again, so much nuclear debris. That's a classical case of a leukocytoclastic vasculitis. Fine. I'll try to put this slide in the RxDX app. Whenever you find the time, just go back and relook at it. I'll also mark few important findings here so that you will not have any doubt here, right? I had in my final year MD pathology exam one amazing slide. It was just written as skin biopsy. We didn't know anything, no history given at all, because I had a very bad examiner, right? I hope you guys won't have them. It was actually a granulomatous, vaginous granulomatous in a skin biopsy. I didn't even look to the vessel till the 5 minutes ticked over, right? That's why I said that the first minute in diagnosing a skin biopsy is localizing the lesion. Is it epidermis? Is it in the dermis? In the dermis? Is it in the collagen primarily? Is it in the vessels or surrounding the vessels primarily, or the adnexal structure primarily? Then go to subcutis. If these 5 areas are sorted, your diagnosis most of, at least you know where I'm looking for, right? That should be more than enough for us to take care of many things. Here, just give me a second. Let me open the second case. Let's see if we can diagnose the second case. Okay, fine. Let's start from the start. As usual, tell me the organ. Go on, I want you guys to comment. I am not going to encourage any more thing unless you guys comment. What is the organ? It's a simple one. It's not a very difficult one at all. What is the organ? Janardhan is great. Bang on, it's a lymph node, right? Amazing. Fine. It's a lymph node. Here also I have 2 tiny lymph nodes surrounding, and it's a huge lymph node sitting here. Fine. Okay. First, when you see a lymph node, first and the foremost thing I want you to see, and I want you to comment here also, whenever a lymph node comes in an exam case, it's not going to be tuberculosis, because I don't think no examiner is ever going to give a simple TB in an exam case. If they give, amazing. I love the examiner a lot, because that's what you're going to see in the future a lot. Fine. In this lymph node, the first question is the architecture maintained, yes or no? I want everyone to comment here. If you're wrong, it doesn't matter. Is the architecture of the lymph node maintained, yes or no? Most of you guys accept that the architecture is not maintained. Okay, perfect. Great. If the architecture is not maintained in any case of lymph node, what do you think will be your diagnosis? Whatever comes to your mind. I don't want a pinpoint diagnosis. At least, is it an inflammatory pathology? Is it a metastatic lymph node? It's a hematolymphoid neoplasm. What will you think if you have a lymph node with architecture not being maintained? A lymph node biopsy with no architecture being maintained, or this effaced architecture, if you can put in the textbooks way, an effaced architecture in a lymph node biopsy, what will be the first thing? Mets. Okay, we'll look at it soon. I'll put a query there, right? Sonia has gone for lymphoma. Anyone else? What do you think? I'll put lymphoma also here. What do you think it could be? Is the lymphoma, is the Mets, or is it an inflammatory condition? Most likely, when you have a lymph node with an architecture which is not maintained or completely effaced architecture, my first thought would be lymphoma. I would not think of a Mets, because Mets generally starts from the subcapsular area. It should take good amount of time for me to efface the entire architecture, but I'm not eliminating that as well. It is a possibility I can have metastasis also. Fine. Vaishnavi, inflammatory condition of lymph nodes. Okay. So inflammatory conditions or the reactive chronic lymphoid hyperplasias, right? So only the chronic non-lymphoid problems will come to a biopsy. Acute lymphadenitis, no one is going to take a biopsy at all. When I take primary chronic lymphoid hyperplasias, I have only three of them. One will be reactive follicular hyperplasia, will still have the maintained architecture. The paracortical expansion, even though it's a very big expansion, still follicles will be maintained to some extent. Then sinus histiocytosis. These are the three basic ones, and all of them might have more or less a maintained architecture. I would not think of an inflammatory condition if the architecture is effaced. That's my first take, right? Okay. Now, how many of your hospitals have good amount of lymphoma exposure? Yes, no, maybe. If no, I'll start with the start thing, which one of my teachers told how to approach lymphomas. An amazing hematopathologist. His thought process is very simple, very less. It's okay. See, his thought process is very simple, that lymphomas, whatever comes to you, consider them as B cell lymphomas unless otherwise proven. That's a first rule, right? Because T cell lymphomas are bit rare by default, right? So for a B cell lymphoma, his way of approach is very simple. WHO classifies B cell lymphomas, the pre-B and mature B, and the those, that's how they classify, right? Actually, that is very useful for a theoretical learning, but for an understanding from an or a diagnostic point of view, the older classification of classifying based on morphology helps a lot, right? Whenever you suspect a lymphoma, and like I said, by default I'm going to think of a B cell lymphoma. I might be proven otherwise wrong, because of with the first set of markers what we give, right? By default will be proven easily wrong, right? So whenever you think of a B cell lymphoma, you have to divide them into small, intermediate, and large. If you have a pen and paper with you, just write this down. This will be very helpful. Fine. And I am going to go for the normal common lymphomas. Our goal is not to diagnose the exotic lymphomas, which comes rarely once in a while, and to be presented in a paper, right? That's not the goal here. To diagnose lymphomas and have a beautiful approach to lymphoma, right? So small, intermediate, large was the older morphological classification. It's based on the morphology. This gives me an easy understanding of where I'm going to look for, what I'm going to look for. Small cell lymphomas, we have, I'm putting SLL here, though SLL will be mostly leukemia. If CLL goes to lymph node, I'm having the lymph node there. SLL could be a small cell lymphoma. Follicular is a small cell lymphoma. Mantle is a small cell lymphoma. Marginal is a small cell lymphoma. Okay. Intermediate cell lymphomas are Burkitt. Mantle here I'm writing plus or minus. I'll tell you why very soon. Burkitt is an intermediate cell lymphoma. DLBCL primarily is a large cell lymphoma. This is the basic classification. Small, intermediate, and large. Now, next question to you is, how do you identify that okay, this lymphoma is small? What is how which what you compare? Like for example, let's go with a very simple and easy finding, which we all of us must have known at some point of time. How do you call a RBC microcytic? How do you call an RBC microcytic? This I'm sure everyone must have known, right? We always compare the RBC with a perfect. We always compare the RBC with the nucleus of a small lymphocyte. That's how we compare an RBC and say, okay, it's a microcytic RBC, it's a normocytic RBC, it's a macrocytic RBC. In the initial few days, you must have done that. Now you must have been masters by looking at RBC, you know that they are small, right? You must have definitely done that, right? Perfect. Great, Shraddha. So now, how do I say a lymphoma is a small cell lymphoma, intermediate lymphoma, large cell lymphoma? There are two people to compare. Anyone knows the answer? If you know the answer, you can please comment. I'll be more than happy to take it on from there. How do you know it's a small lymphoid lymphoma? How do you know it's an intermediate lymphoid lymphoma? How do you know it's a large lymphoid lymphoma? Clue is simple. I have to look at the nucleus of histiocyte. If you look at the nucleus of histiocyte, that's one thing which will help me with it. Perfect. Or the nucleus of high endothelial venues. So now I want to correct a little bit there. Okay. Or I look at the high endothelial venues. Okay. The nucleus of that. Not any vascular endothelium. The high endothelial venules, the endothelial cells nucleus is what I compare to. Okay, fine. That's important because a normal sinusoid might mislead you sometime because sinusoid might have very compressed nucleus, you might mislead it. So HEVs, endothelial cell or the nucleus of histiocyte. I always preferably go with the nucleus of histiocyte because quite a few lymphomas might have a histiocyte and is easily visible in the background of purely replaced by lymphoid cells. High endothelial venues or endothelial cell I won't prefer because some lymphomas will be either completely compressed or might be sclerosed, right? So that time it becomes difficult for me. So my reliance is more on the nucleus of the histiocyte, right? With this, let's go and have a look. We assume it's a lymphoma. I don't know if it's a lymphoma or not. First, we have to look into it carefully. Okay. You don't have normal architecture at all, right? It's replaced by default. Fine. Let's zoom in. Let's zoom in. So, are you guys comfortable in calling it a lymphoma? Yes, no, maybe. Yes, to some extent at least. You're comfortable calling it lymphoma? How many of you are comfortable calling it a lymphoma for sure? How many of you are comfortable in calling this a lymphoma? Yes, no, maybe. If you're not comfortable, say no. I'll try to explain whether you're right or wrong. But I need a little bit of a solid answer so that we can go forward. Yes, perfect. If you're comfortable calling it lymphoma, just a simple question. I hope that will help you a lot. What do you think? Do you think it's a Hodgkin's lymphoma or a non-Hodgkin's lymphoma? Since quite a few of you said yes. Sitara, Princess, Junu and Junaldan. Vaishnavi. Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's. What do you think will make you comfortable? Hodgkin's, non-Hodgkin's? The easiest difference for Hodgkin's and non-Hodgkin's is the uniformity in the background. Very, very unlikely Hodgkin's will have this monotonous look. It's looking more or less similar cells, right? A perfectly similar cells, right? Very monotonous look, right? Non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I'll also definitely think of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. Can we definitely call... Wait, I'll look for a better histiocyte so that you can easily appreciate that. Okay. Can I call this guy a histiocyte? In the center? This one? Can I call it a histiocyte? What I'm pointing out as looks like a histiocyte. Yes. If you accept that this is a histiocyte, What are these cells? These are the tumor cells in the background. Are they smaller or are they bigger? The histiocyte here, do you think they are smaller, they are bigger? How do you think? The histiocyte nucleus compared to that, how do you think the tumor cells are? Come on, it's fine. If you're wrong, it doesn't matter at all. Hakim, Junu, Vaishnavi, KD, perfect. Small? I guess you guys are convinced that it's a small? Let's just go through and look at one more thing to see what's happening. If I have a very good histiocyte, let's look at some other area. That's a histiocyte in the center. Yes. Smaller? Definitely. I might have a tiny histiocyte here as well, right? Smaller, right? So you guys are comfortable in calling it a small lymphoid neoplasm, right? Like I said, assuming that the predominant of the lymphomas come under B-cell lymphomas, that's why I'm saying looks like a small lymphoid neoplasm by default. Fine. Okay. Now let's go to these four. Okay. So now what do I look for so that I can pinpoint and say most likely it could be okay SLL, most likely it could be follicular, most likely it could be mantle and marginal, right? Okay, just one or few points. If your college has case slides, go and have a look at them and see if these points are visible or not first. If you don't have, go back to the app, RxDX app, just go and look at the case slides, different case slides available, and see whether whatever we read is right or not, right? So CLL bar SLL or SLL by default, SLL will have a finding called as proliferation centers. Okay, so how do I know it's a proliferation center? In a sea of blue area, completely blue area, because SLL is a very small lymphoid neoplasm, right? Here and there, again, this will be easily appreciable on a low power. It won't be exactly white, but it'll be pale areas, little bit pale areas. Pale areas will be there, and look for the history of leukemia, because CLL will always be there in a patient is SLL, right? Pale areas in a completely blue thing, please focus high power there. If you see in this pale area, bigger cell, bigger looking lymphoid cell with a good amount of cytoplasm, that could be a SLL. Okay, please don't confuse with a histiocyte. Histiocyte nucleus will be different. This nucleus will be very dark and condensed nuclei. Condensed nuclei, histiocyte will most likely be an open chromatin. This won't have an open chromatin by default, right? Those are pro-lymphocytes area, proliferations in the diagnostic, fine. Follicular for me is only one thing. Look at the high power of the tumor cells. The tumor cells of follicular will never have very round side of nuclear membrane. It will be little bit indented. It will be little bit indented, not extremely indented, but little bit of bend here and there will be there. A nuclear membrane irregularity is a classical finding seen in case of a follicular lymphoma. It will be irregular because they come from centrocytes. Centrocytes by default is irregular. Irregular nuclear membrane, I think, again I'm thinking of follicular lymphoma, I'm not going to diagnose at all, right? Mantle is a great mimicker. Problem with mantle is, mantle has different morphological forms. If you go and look at WHO, it says that I have blastoid mantle. Looks like a blast, little bit of a bigger. That's why I said mantle could be plus or minus here. Blastoid mantles are not small, they are big, little bit bigger. I have pleomorphic mantle. Pleomorphic mantle where cells might have a very irregular contour with a prominent nucleoli like your follicular. Small cell mantle, which might look like my CLL SLL. Marginal like mantle, right? Mantle is a very great mimicker. It mimics a lot. I do have small cell mantle, which exactly looks like an SLL. I do have a little bit of pleomorphic mantle, which kind of looks like your irregular clean nuclei, but a little bit of bigger cell. I have something called a marginal zone like mantle. So marginal zone like mantle means you will have cells with a very thin rim of clear cytoplasm. That's very, very classical for margin zone mantle, right? You'll have extremely clear cytoplasm, very thin rim of clear cytoplasm. I'll just go to a slide After reading this, do you accept that? How many of you accept that this cells, if you look at these cells, do they have a tiny white cytoplasm surrounding them? Yes, no, maybe. They're not just packed. Consider every cell here, wherever we see, it has a tiny rim of white area surrounding them, right? If I'm going to put them into a mantle, I'll put a marginal zone like mantle, or it could be a margin zone lymphoma also possible, right? Yes, it's a very clear, it's a very clear finding, right? So since mantle is a great mimicker, I want you to look at one thing. Mantle has findings outside the tumor cell, right? It's a very classical finding which will be seen outside the tumor cell. It WHO mentions them as microenvironment of mantle, right? Mantle's microenvironment is very important. If at all you are suspecting mantle, always look for the microenvironment. So microenvironment of mantle is the surrounding area surrounding the tumor cells of mantle. Two findings. One, extremely occasionally placed or single scattered histiocytes. It'll be single, it'll be scattered histiocytes. That's one of the very unique findings of mantle. Okay. Second finding, you will have hyalinized blood vessels, small blood vessels which will be hyalinized. Fine. Have you seen a hyaline vascular variant of Castleman? If not, just go back to the channel after the live. There's a case of hyaline vascular variant. You'll have very hyalinized small blood vessels. Okay. That will be the classical finding. The microenvironment of mantle is important for me to pick up mantle. Marginal, like I said, a monotonous looking lymphoid cell with an extremely clear, thin rim of cytoplasm. But marginal is not that common. Marginal will come mostly in a maltoma, so where you'll have a classical clinical history of an H. pylori gastritis or something of that sort. Then it's easy to become a maltoma, right? So these are four things I want to look for when you have confirmed it's a small lymphoid lymphoma. First thing is morphological classification. Then I go with this. Okay, you have CLL, SLL, you have follicular, you have mantle, you have marginal, right? Now we saw the cell slide and you guys accepted that. Just give me a second. Where is it? That okay, it is looking like a dense population of small lymphocyte with clear halo. Do we agree on the fact that I do have occasional histiocytes? Single scattered histiocytes? Yes, no, maybe. That's a scattered histiocyte here, right? Do you accept? And can anyone tell me what is this? The beauty of pathology is, no, whatever you read in image, whatever you read in WHO, you'll see them. The only problem is we don't get exposed to many cases. Once you get exposed to many cases, path is one of the simplest subject. What is this? If you want, let me zoom into one more guy. What's happening here? What's happening here? If you're not comfortable, let's zoom to one more area. What's happening here? If you're not comfortable, let's zoom to one more area. What's happening here? Do you guys accept that super variance of hyalinization? Yes. Okay. So now we have studied a little bit theory about 4 different small cell lymphomas, diagnostic pointers. Where do you think it fits in most often? Like, what could be your most probable diagnosis here? What could be the most probable diagnosis here? Will you fit it into mantle? Maybe, maybe not. Yes. Maybe not. Yes, right? It looks like a mantle. Fine. Perfect. If you feel it's a mantle cell lymphoma, what will be the one IHC marker you want to do so that our diagnosis here will be short? I want one IHC marker. I have some loading issue with the website. It's okay. Pardon me for some time. What will be one IHC marker? I'll just maybe switch off my image for some time. What will be one IHC marker which you'll be doing just to prove it's a mantle cell lymphoma? Okay, Unati has gone for cyclin D1. Anything else? I'll show you that marker. And I'll come to one more classical finding in the Mantle's microenvironment, right? I'll just add a slide. Okay, my encoding is normal. Again, gone. Wait, I think I have to close the YouTube comments so it becomes a little bit easy for me. Just give me a second. Just a second, guys. Okay. BCL1, cyclin D1, same image, same lymph node. Let's zoom out. Same lymph node, same lymph node. Yes. Okay. So now I'll tell you this is a marker of cyclin D1, right? Now I want you to tell me, where do you have to look for cyclin D1? You have to look in the cell wall, so cell membrane, or in the cytoplasm, or in the nucleus. I'll zoom in. Definitely you will jump and say it's positive, right? Positivity in IHC is not just brown or not brown. It should be in the exact location where I want to, right? Only then I'll go for it. SOX11 is very, very good, Sonia, but I don't think so. Most of the hospitals might have SOX11. That's why I'm going for a lesser good alternative of cyclin D1, because SOX11 will be positive in both CCND1, CCND2, both mutations of mantle. That's definitely much better than this. Where do you look for? This is positive. By default, it's positive, right? Most of you, if you're not seeing good enough IHC, you will put the slide and say it's positive. You have to look for cyclin D1. Cyclin D1 is a nuclear marker. Let's zoom in. Do you accept it's a nuclear marker? Is it positive in the nucleus or in the cytoplasm or cell membrane? Cell membrane will look like your fishnet appearance. Only in the membrane, centella blue. Do you accept the nuclear positivity? It's absolutely nuclear positivity, right? Perfect. The one, this guy is histiocyte, which is not positive. Look at this amount of cytoplasm here. You can actually look at them. This must be the high endothelial venules. They are negative. But rest, every cell is positive. Actually, you see a little bit of cells here in between, they are negative. Those are T lymphocytes. Mantle will have a good amount of admixture of lymphocytes along with the tumor cell. That's a third microenvironment feature of mantle cells, right? The perfect nuclear positivity of mantle cell lymphoma, right? Cyclin D1 of mantle cell lymphoma. Cyclin D1 is a very, very good marker for mantle. Cyclin D1 should be positive in the nuclear. It's a nuclear positive marker. This is very, very important. Just brown doesn't mean positive. ER-PR HER2 you must have looked at, right? Nuclear ER, nuclear PR, HER2 membrane. Like that, for every marker, you need to know where to look for positivity, and for cyclin D1, it's nuclear positivity. Be with me for the next 6 months. I'm 100% sure that slowly, one by one marker, we'll definitely learn that. I'll also put slides accordingly, maybe a new section, the digital slides for IHC, just to look for the IHC, what is positive, what is negative, fine? Okay, cyclin D1, and like Sonia said, SOX11 is a good marker because SOX11 is positive in both the mantles. I have CCND1 mutation, that's your cyclin D1 mutation, and cyclin D2 mutation as well, CCND2 mutations, that's cyclin D2 mutations. In both of them, SOX11 will be positive. That's a good marker profile. Definitely called a cyclin D1 negative mantle, but again, cyclin D1 negative mantle is not that common. So we'll go with probably cyclin D1. If that is negative, then we'll look for the others, right? Okay. So I'll just give me 5 more minutes. I'll not take much of your time. We have crossed close to more than 45 minutes. Okay. One thing, when you have a lymphoma suspected, okay, please be judicious in using IHC. You need not tell that it is an even Hodgkin's or not Hodgkin's distinction is not required. Fine. Okay. Tamil speaker, அப்புறம் பேசலாமா? This is for PGs. So ping me on Instagram. I'll definitely help you out. Fine. So when you suspect a lymphoma, starting panel 320. If you have time, start with this. It'll exactly tell me what lymphoma I'm dealing with, right? Whether it is an CD3 T lymphoma or a B lymphoma, right? Let's assume it has come to a CD20 positive, which means it's a B cell lymphoma. In our case, for B cell lymphoma, we had small cell, right? If it's a small lymphoid B cell lymphoma, like what we saw, I have a very simple marker, CD5. CD5 will, this is the approach how it's generally been done, right? If CD5 positive and CD5 negative neoplasm, okay? CD5 positive neoplasm, I have CLL bar SLL, I have mantle. Both are CD5 positive neoplasms. For CLL bar SLL, I look for CD23 positive. Here, cyclin D1 positive. You do both 23 and cyclin D1 if CD5 positive. 23 positive, I go for CLL SLL, and obviously here cyclin D1 will be negative. I'm not mentioning that, and obviously here CD23 will be negative, right? So if you have like 3-4 days to do, go stepwise so that you don't waste markers. But if they're not ready to wait, do every marker at a single go, right? 20 positive, do 5. 5 positive, these are the only two possibilities. The common possibilities. The rare paper presentation tumors are rare. That take time, it doesn't matter at all, right? 5 positive, then do 23 and cyclin D1. If cyclin D1 is positive mantle, 23 is positive CLL by SLL, right? If 5 is negative, then I have two possibilities. I look for your BCL2, okay, BCL2 positive, and your CD10 or BCL6 positive. Think of follicular. For marginal, history is very, very important. History of a long-standing illness like a thyroid problem or a salivary gland problem, because maltomas are not common very much, right? So those things are very important. Then if 43 is there in your hospital, go for 43 positivity. It goes for a marginal zone lymphoma. Okay. A marginal zone might also be positive for 12, but it will be negative for your, sorry, positive for BCL2, but it will be negative for your 10 and BCL6. Because 10 and BCL6 are germinal center markers, only follicular lymphoma will be positive for that, right? 10 BCL6, then easily go for it. I need BCL2 here because the mutation is by default BCL2, right? This is a very simple approach for small lymphoid tumors. When time permits, we'll definitely look at medium, intermediate tumors and large lymphoid tumors down the road. Fine. Any doubts? If there are any doubts, do let me know. Not, we'll call it a day. So we have seen two cases today. One is a leukocytoclastic vasculitis. The other is a lymphoma. Let's see if time permits, I'll take a little bit more in detail some point of time with some other lymphomas. Hopefully we'll learn more together. I'll try to come live every day possible. If I'm not able to come on a single day, let's do maybe an hour of discussion the next day, right? I will definitely go with 1 day of I thought I'll complete one recent advancements and one case discussion same day, but it's taking some more time, and I think it's much valuable for us if we do one recent advancement on 1 day and the other day we'll do a case discussion like that, right? So that we'll slowly and steadily complete everything required for us, fine? So thank you guys. Thank you for an amazing time and opportunity to share the cases what we have seen, and hopefully we'll report at some point of time in future. If you have any doubts, do let me know. Otherwise, we'll call it a day. Thank you for your amazing time once again. Bye bye.